Hey guys, I'm Joe Mitchell, also known as Fish and Mission, and today we're going to be tying bucktails. This is the perfect time of year, it's winter time, so what better to do than to spend some time in the shop getting your equipment ready for the spring bass run. So, alright, let's get started. So first we're going to start with this Smilin Bill head. It's white, it is a 3/4 ounce jig with a pink mouth and pink eyes. So I figured to complement that we're going to use pink thread, white bucktail, pink flash, and then pink hackle. So, alright, let's get started. So first, we're going to start by wrapping the head. So I did about 10 wraps there, just to get it started. So, alright. Next, we're going to add some bucktail. I like to use the top section of the bucktail here, so that way it lays down nice. So if you use down here, it's hollow, so it flares out a little bit. So get yourself a nice chunk. The first one I'll usually do the most out of all of them, the most hair out of each time I tie it on. So, alright. Some nice hair right there, so just line it up, see how long it's going to be. That's a little bit longer than I usually like, so I'm just going to cut that down a little bit. Cut down the side that you cut previously. So just cut that down. Alright. Not only is it shorter, but it also gives you a flat or a flush end where all the hairs are, flat, so it ties better. So move it up just past the thread and give it a few wraps. I like to spread it out a little bit. So, alright, gotta put a few more. Now we're gonna add a little bit more hair. One thing I should add is I'm using braided line scissors to cut the hair. These ones work fine. I got these from a fly shop. But the thing I like about the braid scissors is that they're serrated, so when you try and cut big clumps of hair, the hair won't slip out of the scissors. A bit more. Wrap it. Spread it out a little bit. Alrighty. And one more time. Okay. You kind of want to make it even all the way around, so I put the bigger clump on the bottom. I'm going to put two smaller ones kind of on the side. If you notice, the hair is overlapping the thread, or the hair is going about a 1/4 inch past where the thread ends. So, alright, if you have a rotary, this makes it a lot easier, but I don't. So I'm just going to turn it by hand here. Make sure I tighten up my vise again. Actually, I'll just flip it around. So then, clip it back down. So, we got some good hair on the bottom. So now I'm going to put the hackle on. So if you notice, the hackle is like, it's got that curve shape to it. So I'm going to put the curves facing away from each other. Put that right on top. Give it 4 or 5 wraps. Some guys say you only need 2 or 3, but I like to do a little bit more. So now we're going to cover that with some more hair. This time we're going to use a nice big chunk, or a big tuft of hair. So go ahead and cut it. This hair is a lot longer than the rest of it on the bucktail because I got it from towards the top, so you can see it's a lot longer. So I'm going to cut down about a 1/2 inch or so. So then wrap it, and again spread it out over the hackle. Okay. Just want to make sure everything lays down evenly over the hook and over the hackle. You don't want clumps of hair, big clump here and nothing here, so you want to keep everything kind of uniform. So as you can see, you can still see pink from the hackle here. I don't want any pink showing around the bucktail right here. The hackle, I like it when it flares out the back more than anything. So we're going to add a little bit more hair. Now if you're surf fishing, or if I'm surf fishing I should say, I like to use a bucktail with a little bit more hair, because the beaches around here, unless you're fishing a hole, they're relatively shallow in some spots, and the more hair that's on the bucktail, the more buoyant it is. So whenever I add more hair, you could use a heavier jig so you can cast further, but it's more buoyant in the water. So put a little bit more. The only thing you got to watch out for with a lot of hair is wind resistance. I mean, the buoyancy of the bucktail, the more buoyant it is, the slower you can go on the retrieve. And for those of you who bass fish, you know a slow retrieve is a good thing. Even. So you can see it's coming together pretty nicely. So I'm going to turn it around again, and I'm going to put a little bit more on the bottom. This might seem like I'm doing a lot of hair, but I'm using relatively small amounts at a single time. Alrighty, back over. So now that it seems like we have enough hair, the thing that I like to do first is trim the excess off around the head, the stuff that's past the threads. And for this I'll just use a regular razor blade. Just be careful not to nick the thread. You can see after you cut it, it comes right off. Put it in your bag. One thing that I'll do before I tie my jigs, especially on the powder coated heads, powder coat tends to chip after a while, and a lot of the new manufacturers for bucktails, they use this vinyl paint, which is really nice, but it's also very expensive. So if you're not making a lot of bucktails, there's really no use in investing in a lot of vinyl. So I just stick with the powder coat. I think I've had the same jar for 6 or 7 years. It is ProTech powder coat paint. So now that I got most of the excess off, flip it back around. Alright, I'm going to do a few more wraps just to clean things up. Kind of want to fill in any gaps that you might have created when you cut the hair, but I'm going to leave just a little bit of like a gap for the flash. So for the flash I always like to do a little bit more, so I'm going to take probably 6 or 8 strands of flash. I'll even do 10 or so. Cut it, take your thread, fold it over the thread, go about halfway with it, tighten the thread down, give it a wrap, and then I'll usually pull it out to the sides. So that way it's on the side, each side of the jig rather than just on top. So now that it's like that, I'm gonna wrap it all up. Make sure everything's falling into place nicely. You don't want any big lumps or anything like that. It just looks bad. So you can see it's coming together pretty nicely. almost done. Just keep looking around, inspecting it, make sure that everything's good. Towards the back, flip it around, check, make sure everything's alright. So you can see a little bit of hair exposed, so I'm going to do a few more wraps to try and cover that hair. Alrighty, so back over. And finish it all up. Back to the head. I like to pull it out, wrap it a couple times, go over, and cinch it down. Once I cinch it down, grab your fine point scissors and cut it. So that's pretty much done for now. One thing I like to do, it's just regular clear nail polish. I'll just go over the threads with it. That'll hold everything down in place. It also gives it a nice protective coating. So, okay, that's pretty much it. After this, I'm actually going to epoxy this. I'm going to epoxy the threads and everything using the 2-part epoxy, 30-minute epoxy. And overall, this came out pretty good. So, you know, it's a 3/4 ounce jig. It has a 5/0 or 6/0 hook on it, 6/0 mustad, and you know, it's tied. It's not thick, but it's moderate. It's in the middle. It's not sparse either. So I mean, this is just your average 3/4 ounce jig, and it's gonna cast far. It's gonna swim nice, and the hackle really adds a lot of action. So I hope you enjoyed this video. And any questions, put them in the comments. Like and subscribe, all that stuff. And if you have any suggestions, post them in the comments. Shoot me a message. Whatever you want. So thanks for watching, good luck, and we'll see you out on the water.